Hey guys, you're watching the Best Practices Show. We take a look at the best business practices from the best dental practices all across the country. And if you're looking for a way to better communicate with your team and re-envision the whole vision process, I've got the master communicator herself on today, Katherine Eitel Belt, who is brilliant. You don't want to miss this. So do me a favor, grab a pen and hit the share button. We'll see you in a second. Welcome back to the Best Practices Show, and thank you again for watching. This is so much fun, and I know a lot of you are sending us a lot of great feedback and things that you want to see, and we're doing our best to keep up with those pieces of content that you really want to see in your practice. And today is a very special edition. I've got a good friend of mine, and I consider her a master communicator, one of the best communicators in all of dentistry. And you know how important communication is when you're building a great team in this great profession. Now, before I introduce her and we get started, just a couple show notes. We are shooting this live on Facebook. So please, if you have questions, add them to the feed, and I will give them directly to Katherine during the broadcast, or even if you're watching this later on, go ahead and ask the questions, and we're going to make sure that you get the right answers because we want to make sure you're getting the most out of this. And then also, too, we are giving away a free Apple iWatch and 2 tickets to activate for the best question asked every week on any post, because we love the questions and getting so many good ones already. And we're actually just got approved. We're now on iTunes. So if you can't watch these on Facebook, you can listen to them on iTunes and watch. Now I'm going to introduce my guest because she's one of those people I think I can say I stalk you. You know, in a good way, in a dental education way. I've listened to her for so many years, and I re-listened to her because, as you're going to see, she's a brilliant communicator, and just how she thinks about the communication, how she actually communicates during the communication process. And then we are actually, our coaching team is going through. So this is our coach in the communication process who teaches our coaches and our entire team to be better. And it's Katherine Eitel Belt. And so if people don't know who you are, Katherine, and they haven't been to, dental education forever, I mean, you're one of the top people in dental education period. Who is Katherine Eitel Belt?
Oh, well, first of all, let me just say how excited I am to be on with you, Kirk. And can you always introduce me? Can I just carry you around and have you introduce me always? That was great.
I would love to. Absolutely.
That was great. And I'm so honored to be here with all these great listeners. And so thanks for having me. Who is Katherine Eitel Belt? Katherine Eitel Belt is someone who is in love with dentistry, in love with great communication, in particular, unscripted, genuine, authentic, really powerful communication. So that's what we teach. I grew up sort of in the dental field. I started out as a dental assistant and then migrated, as a lot of people do, up into the administrative area and ran a really busy multi-office practice for years and became a consultant. I was a practice management consultant for a couple of decades. And just recently, in the last 18 months, we've rebranded our company, and now we're doing the thing I love the most and that people wanted the most from us, and that's communication skills coaching. Anything from working directly with patients, so phone skills, financial conversations, those kinds of things, to sort of maybe in the middle, we do leadership coaching, we do conflict resolution, inter-team building communication. And then on the far end, we do a lot of train the speaker and train the trainer work like we're doing with your coaches. So, but if it's about communicating, if it's about landing your message with your listener the way you wanted it to land, that's what we do.
Yeah. Now, if you're watching this and you see Kath, you're just going to see somebody who uses their gift. You were given an incredible gift and you use it every day in facilitation, and it's very authentic and natural. And that's why you're so good at what you do. And you and I are talking about this. you are so good at helping a lot of practices re-engineer the vision process and through a very authentic and engaging way where it really makes a huge difference. And let's talk about why this is so important, because this is my belief. I think you can only go so far and you're stuck without incredible communication skills in a relationship-based business like this. But why is this subject so important?
Well, I'll tell you just in general about communication skills. You just said it. I mean, it is what propels careers forward. It's what builds relationships with clients and patients. It's what builds relationship with the communities that you live and work in. It's what builds relationships with inter-team. So what else is there? It's absolutely relationship business that we're in. It's a service-based healthcare business. And so those that do better than others, generally speaking, have figured out how to authentically and powerfully communicate. And so we think it's pretty darn important. As it relates to vision, I think always one of the trip-ups in having a vision about where you want to go and what you want to build and actually seeing it happen has been an inadequate way of communicating that to a team or with each other, where it actually makes a difference in what people do. And so that's what I'm interested in. I've been studying that for probably the last 5 or 6 years about how do we do this differently than we've done for decades. So that's what I'm really interested to share.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this is a big deal because when we train teams from all over the world, we always start with a process where we get them engaged and get them talking. And this is why you're so good at what you do. A lot of times the team members say, well, he or she doesn't talk to us. If they're talking to us, they don't talk to us. And then the dentist will say, well, I talk to them every day. They just don't get it, So you can see the disparity here. Yeah. And, you and I talked about this, the word vision's just overused. Where do we start in this? Because I think everybody watching this would agree you have to have a great team to do well in this profession. And then you have to communicate with them. But Katherine, if I'm a 32-year-old dentist watching this going, look, I don't know where to start. I just wanted to work on teeth when I went to dental school. Now I realize there's people around me that I got to deal with. Like, where do I start,
Well, it's not only that 32-year-old dentist who wants to know where to start, but it's also the dentist that's been working for decades that says, I've done this, I sat through those vision workshops, it didn't change anything. And I think both are real and both are true. And so I think I can add some very simple ideas that are different maybe than what you've heard that will make this simple and actually make it work. So let's just start from the beginning. First of all, I believe that human beings want to be inspired. They want to be inspired. They aren't always, and they aren't always internally or individually, but they yearn for being a part of a bigger effort that they can really feel good about. Now, of course, they want to make a living, and of course, they want to be respected and all those things at work and appreciated. But also, in addition, they want to be inspired. So, and I say always, no matter what communicator we're talking about, if you're a front lines communicator on the telephone, if you're a leader of a business, or if you're a speaker from the stage, there's two things every communicator has to develop and create. One is clarity, right? So what we don't want to do is speak to someone, speak to our teams, and confuse them. Mm-hmm. Have them leave our conversation being more confused than before we started. So one of the things when we think about how we're going to communicate a vision, one of the things we have to think about is, how do I present this in a way that people gain clarity? They're not more confused. The second thing all communicators need to create is inspiration. So, in other words, you could get someone super clear about what you wanted them to do, but they weren't in any fashion or in any way inspired to do it. Right. So it's one thing to understand, but it's a different thing to actually want to do it on your own and be inspired and motivated.
Yeah. Now I'm just going to I'm going to ask you, how much does fear play a role into this? Because a lot of times dentists want to treat people and do dentistry, but oftentimes they're afraid to tell people the truth, especially the team members around them, for fear they're going to hurt their feelings. So they end up being nice instead of what you described, clarity or clear. They're just nice. So do you see that a lot?
Well, I don't think they're mutually exclusive. I think that assumes that they're not the same. I think you can be very, very nice and super clear. So, probably most people who've had kids have heard of the term happy, tough, or tough love, those kinds of things. Yeah. So it's similar to that. What we recommend, and you'll see through this vision process we're going to talk about, I believe in this concept of everyone being at choice, we call it, at choice. So what being at choice means, it means that I believe I am always at choice. I don't have to have this person working for me. I want to. I want it to work, but it doesn't have to. I'll be fine whether they do or they don't.
Right.
I see myself as that way, as a boss. And as an employee, I believe that each one of my employees will be fine whether they work for me or they don't. And so if I really believe that, I'm able to sit down and say, I'm at choice always. No one forces me to have anybody work for me. No one forces me to be here. Just the same as no one puts a gun to your head and makes you drive to my office every day. Right? We're always at choice. So from that platform, how do we have a discussion to where I clear up? First of all, as a leader, I'm going to take 100% responsibility that you don't have clarity around some things, that I haven't communicated to you how important this thing is to me, whatever it is that they're irritated about. That I think that's what we look at this thing, this behavior is bothering me, but I think my only two choices are be nice and ignore it, or be mean and call it and confront it. But I think there's a middle place. I think you can say, I would never be mean. I'm not interested in being mean. That's not who I am. And that's not the example I want to be in the world. So how do I be authentic and truthful and say, this really matters to me? And I thought I communicated it, but clearly I didn't, and I take responsibility. That's my responsibility, and that didn't happen. So as of today, I want to take another stab at being super clear what it is, what I need, why it's important to me, and how immediate I need it. Right. And I want you to know, employee, that I fully respect your ability to listen to this and take it in and decide whether it works for your personal vision or not. And if it doesn't, I want you to know that I care about you and I'll help you transition anywhere you need to. I've already made my decision. Things need to be different. Right. I need you to be at work on time, or I need you to take more photography in a new patient experience. And that's a non-negotiable working for my practice. If it goes against any ethics or values that you have, or there's a missing piece for you, then absolutely 100% I would respect that. And if you continue to decide to work for us, that's a non-negotiable, and I'm going to need that to happen really quickly. You see? Yeah. So I don't have to be mean. I get to be respectful. I get to honor who they are. I don't ever get pulled into the argument of that's not right, or I don't think I should have to do that, or, so I'm not upset because I leave everyone at choice. So you see the difference in that? Really different. Yeah.
You just made me feel so good. Well, first thing comes out is your vision, loud and clear, your core values. The second thing is you're telling me what to expect and the rules of the game here. And then you're telling me I can opt out of the game if I don't follow by your rules. So I love that. Now, talk about the second piece, though. If maybe what if I'm a dentist watching this going, hey, look, I'm not a motivational speaker. You talk about inspiration. I can do the clarity part, but I don't know how to inspire people. I've never given a motivational speech. I can't pump people up. What would you say to that?
Well, I don't think motivating and inspiring someone necessarily means we're Tony Robbins up on the stage, right? It could. I get super inspired by Tony Robbins when I watch him, but I don't need Tony Robbins all the time. And I'm not, Katherine Eitel Belt's not Tony Robbins. Where I got labeled as an inspirational speaker was when I started speaking authentically from my own voice. And my voice and my style is different than super than Kirk, right? You're super high energy on the stage. I've seen you several times present. You're so high energy, and it's so authentically you that we buy it, that we're inspired by it. But someone could be softer, quieter. What inspires us is passion. And passion is not communicated in the loudness or the gregariousness of your style. Right. Passion is when you're talking about something and we can feel your heart quicken when you're talking about it. We can see you, like when you and I were getting ready to do this and Ben was saying, back up, Katherine, back. And I was the reason I'm leaning in is because I like this. I like talking about this, and it comes through and I want to lean into it, and people can feel that. And so I think the inspiration part is learning to trust that we can, if we speak from our heart about our vision or about what we want and how we want things to be, people are generally going to line up with that or not. And when they line up with it, it's usually pretty sweet. So, but what you want, when I say clarity and inspiration, what I mean is get people super clear. Don't beat around the bush. Go there and do it in a respectful way where people are at choice. And then the inspiration piece is letting them know that you fully believe that they can reach this bar. You 100% believe that if they decide to do it, they're going to do it. Right. The question becomes whether they're ready to do it or not. So I'll say when I'm coaching someone, I don't have any doubt you can do this, what I'm asking you to do. Zero doubt. The only question on the table is if you're ready. Because if you're ready, we can provide the resources and we can provide whatever it is you need to get there. If you're not ready, nothing would make a difference. And it's 100% okay if you're not. We'll just need to make a different decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But I want them to be inspired, and I want them to be inspired even if they said, I'm not gonna do that, so I can't work here. I still want them to be, I want them to know that my firm belief is that they are gonna be all right in life. They're gonna do just fine. And that this however long we had together was a great experience.
Yeah, and you set them free with some wings, and they look back in their experience with you and go, she's pretty cool. She gave me a shot, and it wasn't for me, you know?
Yeah, yep.
So really now you have a very unique training process in which you engage people, and take us through this whole vision process. It's very unique. How do we use it, and how do we transform it? You mentioned calibration retreats, which are phenomenal. So take us through all of that and share with our listeners how that all works.
Well, I think we've been looking at vision in an odd way for a long time in our industry. And maybe this is true for other small industries, or not a small industry, but for like where we've had small businesses. Vision for many, many decades, the common wisdom was that you scheduled a day or a morning, you brought your whole team together, you spent some hours crafting a vision together. And I can remember in years past, I would see that coming up on my calendar and I think, oh my gosh, here we go. I couldn't pinpoint what it was about that training I didn't like, but I didn't. I knew something didn't feel quite right. And the day I realized what it was the day I hired my first employee for me. I was out on a morning walk and I thought, okay, I got to walk my talk. You know, now I've been teaching this stuff. We got to come together and write this vision. And then I thought, what? That it makes zero sense. I don't even know if this employee is going to work out. You know, it's her first day on the job. I mean, how do we do that? So what I've learned since then is there's only one person or group of people that should ever write a vision for a business, and it's the owners of the business. That's it. No employee should write the vision for the business, only the owner. So when we work with groups or businesses, we take the owner aside first, and we give them. And matter of fact, I would happily share this kit with all your listeners, whoever would like it. But it's a kit where they go through a series of questions, and they just answer these questions for themselves. And I tell them, we are not initially writing this vision to go in a frame on the wall. Or to go on a website. Though, when you do it well, pieces of it may find its way into a brochure or on the website or on the wall, for sure. But let's not write it for that purpose. We're not writing it as a customer-facing document. Right. We're writing it as a mirror of you, and in a way that you can then use it to articulate to your team. If they're coming on board with you, this is where the bus is going, because you've decided. And employees are dying for this kind of clarity. They are hungry for this kind of clarity. And so we coach the owner until they have it written. And I mean, I want it written so that when the owner reads it to themselves, their heart rate speeds up. They're so excited.
Right.
And they think, oh my gosh, if I could figure out how to make that happen in the next 5 years, that would just be the most amazing business ever.
Yeah, and
so,
you are so spot on. They're not hungry for this; they're starving. Yeah.
And so we get the owner or owners clear, and then we coach them on how to just stand up and conversationally walk us through what does it look like in your dreams in this vision in 5 years or 10 years or 3 years or whatever time frame the owner wants to put on it. And so we coach them on, you're going to have the document, we're going to write it out, and we're going to hand it out to your team, but not before you just walk us through it conversationally. We coach them on how to do that. We're also tell them that when we have you stand up to present this, one of our trainers is going to be with you. And we do that at what we call a calibration retreat, a vision calibration retreat. So here's how this works. They schedule a day or maybe two, depending on the size of the business.
Okay.
And it is always 100% of the time off-site. It is never on-site. We find the most creative location we can possibly find to have this in. So we do it at climbing gyms and pavilions in outdoor adventure parks. We do it at the Lion Camp experience at the Wild Animal Park in San Diego. Wherever. We book this day, and we start out, either myself or one of our trainers will just talk about what is vision and why does it matter? Why does it matter to the employees? Why does it matter to this owner? What does it mean to the business? And then real quickly, we get the owner up and we let them just tell us, where are we going? Right. And I facilitate questions from the group. So I say to the team, okay, now that you've heard this, what's popping up for you? What questions do you have? What are you worried about? What are you excited about? Where do you have some gaps of? And so we just do the debrief on it. And then we give them choice. We say, your job now, it's the owner's prerogative and it's the owner's responsibility to be clear on the vision and to say it clearly to us as a team. It's our job to listen to that, ask our questions, get clear, and then ask ourselves, does that work vision support my life vision, my personal life vision? Because here's a good example of where it might not. Mm-hmm. We once had a practice where in the vision, the dentist wanted to take kind of a radical, he wanted to go in a different direction. It was going to require a lot of continuing ed. It was going to require some new skills and new trainings. And some of those were going to require overnight stays or weekend stays to go get this training. Right. And so one of the team members, when she heard that, she raised her hand and she said, well, does that mean that we're going to have to go somewhere and spend the night, or I'm going to have to be gone over the weekend? And he said, yes, it probably will. And she said, then I can't do it. And he said, well, can I ask why? And we all thought, well, she's just not a team player. She doesn't want to come anything Monday through Friday. And it turns out that she and her husband had only had one child, and that child had passed away. He was a special needs child, and they couldn't have any more children. And so they had dedicated their lives to adopting bringing in foster children that were special needs, especially older children. And at any given time, they had from 3 to 6 children in their homes that were special needs foster kids. Wow. And so their deal was, she worked during the day and he took care of them while she worked. And then in the evenings and on the weekends, he went to a job and she took care of them. And so you can see where it wasn't what we thought, but she has a life vision that doesn't really align, for the best of reasons, with this practice vision. So we were able to help her transition with great, he gave her like 2 months to help her find another job. It wasn't a 2 weeks and you're out. It was, how can we rethink how we do this? How can we say, yeah, I don't know if that's going to work for me. Okay, so then what kind of time do you need, and what kind of letters could we write, or what kind of phone calls could we make on your behalf? So we get you where it's going to work, and those that remain on our team are in real alignment, and they're jazzed and excited and clear about where we're going. Do you see how that is? So then from then we spend the rest of the day, the bulk of the day, now taking a look at, well, where are we now that we know where we're going? And of course that creates a gap, and we spend the rest of the day, that's where the team then really jumps in with their creativity and their creative ideas, and their looking at opportunities within that. And now we create strategies and tactics that they'll now use over the next 12 months to get that marker moved a little forward toward that vision.
Yeah.
They're remarkable days. And we usually end this day, we've usually done some Survey Monkey sort of anonymous surveys of the team. And what we're looking for is, where are the emotional roadblocks for the team? So sometimes they could be trust, they could be accountability, it could be maybe a culture of complaining and blaming or something like that, gossip or whatever. So we're looking for, where's the emotional roadblocks, and then usually toward the end of the day, our trainers have created some sort of experiential exercise that the goal of that exercise is to create a breakthrough for the team emotionally, how they bond, how they are together in their culture. And so those can be anything from zip lining activities, really physical, to very non-physical exercises that we create, but we strategically pick them and debrief them through the filter of what we're trying to create breakthroughs for them on. So these days we've had people say, that was the most powerful day I spent with my boss, or the most powerful day I spent with my team ever. And we recommend that they do it every year. Every year they have that day. Every year they say, is the vision still the same as it was 12 months ago, or has it changed slightly? And most of the time it's kind of tweaked a little, it's changed just slightly, and we need to know that. So it's an ongoing thing. I do it with my team. We just did ours about, 6-8 weeks ago. I have a lot of new people on the team, and so we came together. I stood up and talked through my vision, and we looked at it, and they asked questions, and we strategized, and it was fabulous. So
yeah, and that's probably one thing you have to do, not only for clarity, but you've got to breathe some new life into the vision every year, because maybe the team members don't remember. You're going to be bringing new people into the fold all the time. Now, let me go back to, because I think what you're saying is so powerful, because these calibration retreats can be life-changing, and probably the first one's the hardest one. But what happens, and what I heard you say is, it's okay if you tell a team member or tell the rest of your team, look, I'm going in this direction. And it's important to get alignment before we do any of the strategy work, because the thing that I think you're going to say is, you're never going to get aligned. Like, people don't wake up and go, hey, I'm aligned now. It's 6 months. This is actually where, if you can't get alignment at the beginning, that's probably the best time to say, hey, look, let's mutually agree that we're going to go in different directions. And that, I think, might be the hardest part for somebody watching this, to say, hey, look, because we tend to just motor right into vision, and then you can feel the resistance everywhere, within yourself, within the community, maybe whatever. Am I correct in assuming that? People, if you don't have alignment, just stop right there, correct?
That's true. However, a couple things come to my mind. One is, that's one of the reasons that we highly recommend that owners do not try to do this retreat, at least for sure the first couple times, without an experienced facilitator. Right. An experienced facilitator, at least from our perspective, will set the tone for the meeting and create safety. Meaning, I would say, here's why this is important that your owner does this. And here's what's important for you. Mm-hmm. That we're not going to, first of all, force you to make a decision today, but we are going to give you a timeline. that we're going to need a decision by. So today is about listening to the vision, asking any questions. If you've got questions, now's the time to ask. What does this mean to my position? What does this mean to what I'm doing here? And get your questions answered. And some of you, there's three things that are going to happen. A portion of you are going to raise your hand and say, I don't need to know anymore. I am so darn excited already. Count me in. I'm aligned. Let's go. How fast can we go? Which is beautiful, right? The second thing is somebody will say, I am definitely not aligned, like that woman. She knew. And so I say to the team before the owners ever stood up, if some of you today say, I can tell you right now I'm not aligned, if you're brave enough to do that, here's what we promise. You're not 2 weeks and you're out. It's not that kind of deal. If you know it for sure, then can we just agree that we're going to honor it? We're going to honor that. And we care about you. You've all worked here a long time. We care about you. We're going to figure out how to help you get where you need to go in a reasonable way. We're going to do everything we can because we know that it's the owner that may be changing the game.
Right.
Like, here's a great example, Kirk. And I'll come back to my second point. I won't forget. But there was a group that this was years ago that did this retreat, and the owner said to me, Katherine, I want to go 100% insurance free. Do you think I can do it? And I said, well, I think you can do anything you want to do. The question is, why do you want to do it? And have you explored the kind of work that will take, right? Because it's not less work to go insurance free. It's actually at least as much, if not more. It's just different. It's just different work. It's totally possible, but it's different. And so we talked it all through, and he said, that's exactly what I want to do. So I said, okay, step number 2 then is we need a calibration retreat to announce this. You were going left in your vision, and now you're going right. You are radically changing the direction. You got to own that. You got to step into it, and you've got to know that you are changing the game on them. You have every right and it's your prerogative. You can change the game 100 times a year if you want to. But you're doing it. And so we just need to know, are we still in alignment? Well, sure enough, he did the best job of revealing this new vision. And just as we expected, most of the team was like, you don't even have to say anymore. I love this. Can't wait. Wish you'd have done it years ago. I'm on. But there were 2 people in the group that looked like somebody had whacked them upside the head with a 2x4. And guess who they were in the practice? Guess what their roles were in the practice? Right? They're the insurance people. They were the insurance billers, right? They were the ones that was their job. And they listened to this, we're going to go insurance free and we're not going to bill insurance handle insurance anymore. And they're like, well, what do you mean? And what does that mean to me? What do I do now?
Right.
And so we talked to them about we aren't going to need that skill anymore, but we are going to need some new ones. If you're interested in learning the new skill, we're going to make that available. If you're not, we're going to help you transition to a new place. Well, it turns out one of the 2 ended up transitioning into a brand new role, and she's still there today doing great. The other one, I kind of teasingly say, I think she's weird because she loved insurance codes.
Really?
I'm teasing when I say that. But she was
I would
that
agree
kind
with
of
that,
person,
though.
right?
Yeah.
She loved them. She knew all those codes by heart. As a matter of fact, her vision was to work in a practice that did not just dental coding, but did medical cross coding, right?
Yeah.
So I ended up being able to get her with another consultant, a colleague that had a practice nearby, and they wanted to bring in cross coding. They wanted to expand their insurance billing. We were able to transition her there, and as far as I know, she's still there. And that was a great example of realigning people, but we made it safe for them. We said, you don't have to tell us today, but by Friday, you're going to need to give us an answer. So use this time to ask your questions. And here's what he said that I thought was so brilliant. He said, if you raise your hand and say, I'm on board, of course, that's easy. If you raise your hand and say, I'm not on board, we'll help. Here's the only wrong answer. The only wrong answer is to say, I'm on board, but you're really not, because you want to keep the job.
Right.
because Katherine has told us we've got to learn new skills. We've got to do some new things, including me, the owner. And if you're on board and you like it, you won't mind that push, because we're going to push you. I'm going to be pushed. We're all going to be pushed by our coach. If you raise your hand and you're not really on board, you're going to hate the push.
Right.
And that is the only time that we're going to have some friction and we're going to have an issue. So I'm asking you to be open, to be honest, to feel safe enough to say, I'm not sure about this.
Right.
I'm going to need to really think if I want to align here or not.
Yeah.
And so a facilitator is going to help create safety as much as possible so that the room can really explore it and not be worried about being fired that afternoon. It's got to be that kind of safe environment where we can be vulnerable and we can ask these questions. But without a facilitator, it's hard for an owner to do it, I think, independently. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm going to ask you the tough questions that a lot of us coaches talk about behind the scenes. So if you're a dentist watching this, I've heard you use the word owner and then owners. Okay. So
yes.
You're a master coach. We all joke or not joke as coaches in dentistry, the more owners you work with, the more the complexity and the harder it can be. So when you have a practice that's one doctor, it's very easy. 2 doctors, a little bit harder. Now you get 3, 4, 5. How hard is that and how important is that work when you're dealing with a whole group of people? Because you work with big practices also and small ones. So talk about the alignment at top. It's kind of like 4 people being married, So
yes.
Where do you start with that?
That's weird, right?
Right.
Yeah, and it's weird in business for sure. Here's the thing. I want to make the distinction. I'm not talking doctors. I'm talking owners. Owners,
yes.
So an associate doctor is a team member, just like a dental assistant or a hygienist or an admin. So only owners. But you are absolutely 100% correct, Kirk, that if you have more than one, it is exponentially complex. And I'm going to contend that to the degree the owners are not aligned, the business is not aligned. To the degree that it is harder for them to reach unity on the vision, it is increasingly harder for the teams and company employees to manifest the vision because they are never clear. They hear one thing from one, they get a different message from another. And as long as they can have different styles,
right?
But as long as their end vision and end game is synchronized and they're in alignment around that, then the team can communicate differently about it. But typically what we see is the more owners there are, the harder it is to get unity around this common vision. But I want you to think about this.
Okay.
There are huge companies out there. Let's just take a Microsoft, for example, right? Or Apple. Enormous global companies that understand that one person at the helm, though there are lots of owners, but they put one person in charge because they smartly know that there's a tipping point when you have lots of owners that you could never reach consensus. Right. So they hire someone to set the vision, and all they ask is a certain return.
Okay. Right? And would you do the same with multiple? Would you do the same with multiple owners in a dental practice the same way?
I think if they're struggling, if you have 4 or 5 owners and they're struggling for this unity, then I say we're better to get one step above and say, what is the return we could agree on? And let's put one person in charge to set the course.
Right.
Right? And then you have a shareholders meeting and you have that and you have a board of directors and you have all the things that a bigger business like that would need. But you can't have 5 people with 5 different visions and directions. Well, you can. It happens all the time. Kurt, there are thousands, millions of businesses out there that have never done this work and they're successful. I do not believe that you need a vision to have a successful business because we have thousands of examples of businesses that are successful without it. Right. But I do think that if you're a small business and you want to accelerate your success, This is a tool that is powerfully underutilized and grossly underutilized, and it's powerful in getting you there. And so I don't think it's essential, but I think it is one of the best tools to accelerate your growth and success if you get it right. Get it right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree with you more. In our world, I don't know how anyone can operate without it, or even any family. I mean, it's just hard, but people do it all the time.
Do. I mean, if we're honest, they do.
Right.
Yeah.
And
so I don't think you have to do it, but I will say what I know. What I know to be true is when this is done well and religiously and right, the rate of acceleration in success is exponentially higher. Right. So I think it's a tool. It's just a tool.
Right.
I mean, there are countries with dictators that work, right? I don't want to live there. You don't want to live there, but they are. It can work. It's just, I just find this to be what the newer generations are really responding to very well. They respond to this. Millennials respond to this in a huge way. If you really want to up your leverage of productivity with millennials, use this tool because they like to buy into a bigger, clearer vision. They really do.
You're right. You're so right. They want to have work that has a lot of meaning, which is very cool with the next generation of workers. Yeah. And I do believe dictatorships work. Just come to my house sometime. Yeah. There's no democracy there at all whatsoever.
Makes my point.
Absolutely. Yeah. So as far as the calibration retreat, once you get alignment at the top, now I asked you this question, where else are we doing calibration? We talked about clinical calibration, talked about systems calibration. Because again, you have a masterful process. What else happens in the calibration retreat?
Well, it depends. Strategies are driven from the vision. So once we have alignment on where we're headed and super clarity, then I say, okay, now time for a report. And the report, and this has all been, they knew in advance that they were going to have to, the different departments, so hygiene department, the admin department, the clinical department is all ready to make sort of a state of the union. Where are we? What are the numbers there? Where are the opportunities? Where are the challenges? Especially now through the filter of this vision.
Yeah.
And sometimes, if one of the challenges in meeting this vision is calibrating clinically, then it's first up on the list.
Yeah.
But in some practices, calibrating clinically is not in the top 5 strategies to get the marker moved on the vision. So it's not that it's not important, but for that particular team doing what they need to do, it's not going to make the top 5 list. So we're looking for what are top 5 strategies and tactics that practice can focus in on, can review all their employees against in the coming year. What my goal at calibration retreats is everybody leaves there knowing what they need to do if they're going to be in alignment and stay on board. What is it they need to do within their position to move the marker forward? And one of the things we do with the individual team members is we give them a little kit to work through their life vision. So it's a set of questions for them to come to this meeting clear about what's their life. Do they want to go back to school ultimately? Do they want to buy a home? Do they want to live somewhere else? Where are they headed? They don't have to share it. They can if they want to, but they don't have to share it. But what I ask is that they've done the work so that they have some work should be in service to all of our life's visions. Right? Work is in service to that. And so they won't know if this work vision will serve their life vision if they don't know what it is. So we just ask that they come prepared with that so that they have some measure of whether they actually line up with it or not.
Yeah. And I got a great question here from Deepak. He said, when we talk about creating a vision, I wonder how easy a skill is to articulate, certainly something we are not trained on. When does an owner know that they have defined and articulated their vision sufficiently so to permit advancement to the next step? So, maybe we don't know enough, but when do you know you've communicated sufficiently enough so that we can move to the next step?
Well, that's a great question, Deepak, and I'll give you a couple of ways to think about it. First of all, I think we make this way harder than it needs to be. Visions are, if they're really coming from an authentic place, they all of them answer a set of pretty standard questions. But how they answer it, I can't even tell you how much they vary. So some people will say, "Hey, you know what? When they write it, I say, don't justify anything and don't feel the need to explain anything. If you like working at 7 o'clock, I have an owner who said, I'm a morning person and I have a huge commitment to my health. He's a cyclist. So he wanted to work Tuesday through Friday from 7 to let me see if I get this right. 7 to 4. He wanted to be on his bike every day at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock or something like that, because he wanted to be at the dinner table 5:36, right? So probably 4 o'clock he wanted to be on the bike. So he said, I want to see patients from 7 to 3. I want an hour to do my paperwork, interface with my lab, do my lab work, all of that. I want to be out the practice and on my bike by 4:15. I want to be home by, 5:30, ready to go. That's how I want it. Mm-hmm. So he couldn't align with anybody who said, well, my daycare doesn't open until, 7:30. Well, I mean, we totally respect it. And it's not a good alignment, because his huddle is at 6:30 every morning. 6:30, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, he's ready to go. So that works for some and doesn't for others. He also doesn't see a hygiene patient in that schedule after 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock is the latest hygiene because they have to be done by 3.
Right.
So,
right.
And he has one of the most successful practices I've ever seen. So
that's awesome.
You see what I'm saying? So it can be, and then there are other people who hear that and go, that sounds awful. Mm-hmm. Like, I love to see kids. I love to do endo. The next one says, I hate endo. If I never had to do endo again, I'd be a happy camper. I say, great. It doesn't matter. You just have to get brave and say, and here's another thing, Deepak, don't get wired and mired down. Don't get mired down in what I call the cursed hows. The cursed hows.
Right.
Because the mind wants to go so quickly to, well, I'd love to do that, but I don't know how I would ever get patients to agree to not having evening appointments, or I don't know how I'd ever get somebody to come to work at 6:30 in the morning, or I don't know how I'd ever have my patients not get their endo done here or bring their kids here, And I say, don't worry in the vision about the how.
Yeah.
The how where your team can come in and help you. If they're aligned, they will be incredibly creative, and you'll be surprised, because if it's ever been done on the planet, it's possible. And if somebody's already done it, Katherine, Kirk, all of our colleagues, you and I, our colleagues, Kirk, we can put them in touch with practices that have done what they want to do.
This is awesome. The cursed house. I'm going to get a t-shirt that says, I don't get mired down in the cursed house. So I'm going to go, this is what I want. And I'm just going to walk out. No. Now, that's really important that you said that too, because the other thing that happens is you can get stuck in the details when you're really focused. Now, the other thing that happens when a dentist doesn't do what you said, if he really, or he or she wants to start at 6:30 and they limit themselves to what a team member will or won't do, you now lower your vision and you wear the discrepancy of that vision and you share it with a team member that doesn't own your business. You have earned the right. You have worked so hard to become a dentist and an owner. You have earned the right to call the shots. Would you agree?
Absolutely, 100% agree. And Deepak, here's how we know. So we don't just go through that whole vision where the dentist or the owner, relays his vision. They get to ask their questions. We get clarity when I think we're like done with that, which is usually mid-morning, late morning. Then I say, okay, any other questions, any other worries, any other concerns? When you just feel that team go, oh, we're good, right? We got it. Then I say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do an exercise, and I probably can think of 5 or 6 off the top of my head, but we pick an exercise that is a good match for the personality of the team. But the point of the exercise is to have the team go off, get up, go off and do this thing, and they have to bring it back to the owner and I, and it is a real fun way to recap what they think they just heard in the vision. So sometimes they have to go create a piece of art. And we act like a museum, and we do this gallery walk, and they leave a docent at their work of art. But the work of art has to have all of the major pieces of the vision in it. And if they don't get it, we're back at session.
Wow.
So it lets us know. Or sometimes we do vision T-shirts, and they get plain white extra large T-shirts and a bunch of fabric markers, and I get them on the floor, and they create these logos for the new vision, and then they model them for the group, right? And they explain what their logo, why their logo. But what it shows the owner and I is, did they get it? Did they get it? Did they really get what we meant to land, or did they not really? Are they fuzzy? Because it'll show up in there. And we make it fun, but it's really, I don't do any play in training unless there's a purpose. It's not gratuitous play.
Right.
It's purposeful play.
And I would say it's thoughtful. It's also thoughtful, wildly engaging, and fun, because I've seen you do these, and that's where the value of working with an outside facilitator that's a master like you is. As a business owner. I'll just raise my hand first. As a business owner, you lack creativity sometimes in all these people because you're so focused on the business and where it goes. But these people are starving, like you said before, for engagement, all that kind of stuff. And when you make learning fun and it's purposeful and you get them thinking, that's where and I love how they have to incorporate elements of the vision, and it's just not goofing off. Yeah.
So that's how in other words, we do a test, but it's not perceived by them, by the team as a test, but it really is. It's a test to say, okay, if you think you have it, if you don't have any more questions, if you got it and you're raising your hand to a line, then let's test it. And so, of course, we make the test fun, but it's a test nonetheless. And if they don't pass it, then what that tells me is not that they're stupid. It tells me that we haven't done a good enough job yet in creating clarity with this team. And so we just take a second stab at it. We take another stab at it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What other pieces of advice? I know I could go for 3 hours and just take it. But when you look at simplifying, maybe not the complex version, but the simple version, what other considerations do we need as a business owner, as a team, to really have these calibration sessions transform our lives and really have meaning?
Well, I think don't wing this.
Right.
Like I said, I'm happy to share a kit that we've put together that will help people figure out their vision. It also gives a little agenda for how to set up a calibration retreat. I would highly recommend a professional facilitator, but if they don't have one or feel like for whatever reason they're not going to, at least prepare in advance. So don't just show up without having thought through that day, because otherwise it's a pretty expensive day to not have it create a big result. And so we want to make sure that's very structured. So people come with ready. We give them some assignments ahead of time, and they come prepared for that. And then the second piece of advice is, we're known at Lion Speak, at my company Lion Speak, for teaching unscripted, fabulous communication skills. Mm-hmm. And people ask us all the time, well, why unscripted? Aren't the scripts there to produce consistency? And I think they were. I think originally owners and managers and leaders thought that the only way we could get consistency across all the people answering the phone or all the people, talking to a patient chairside or whatever, would be to hand them a book of scripts so everybody said the same thing. The downside to that is we rob people of their ability to tap into their own greatness. And I think patients and humans know when they're being read to from a script, a memorized script. So there's a disconnect, right? So, but I think it begs a legitimate question. How do we get consistency of service and consistency of communication without a script? So what we've developed is, in each of these places, we've developed a framework or a protocol that, as long as they stay within that protocol or that framework, they can be who they are. Right. They don't need a script. As a matter of fact, we ask them to show up really bigger than they've been showing up within that framework, right? So if they're funny, we want them to be funnier, right? Where if they're warm and sweet, we want them to be sweeter. I tease, if they're direct, we want them to be careful.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, so how that applies to calibration retreats is, we don't want them to stand up and read this document.
Mm-hmm.
We want them to have the document, but what I try to train them is, how do you prepare the document, get your thoughts in order, but how do we help you practice? Just talk to us. Just say, I don't know why, but this is what I like to do. I want to do more of this and less of this. I want to have more of this in our rather than this. And I don't know exactly how we're going to do it, or I have some ideas, and that's what we're going to spend the day exploring. But where I have no doubt is what I prefer and what I don't, what I'm good at and what I'm not good at, and what I want to create and what I don't want to create, where I don't want to end up in 5 years. And so, so I think again, don't overthink it. Don't take someone else's vision. Like, if you get the vision kit, there's some examples. I have my vision in there. I have some examples of some dentist visions in there. We took their name off, but I tell people, whatever you do, don't read it. You're going to read it and like who you are.
Yeah.
And don't just put your name on there. Don't just say, I like that. That sounds good. I'll put my name on that, because it won't land with your team. I'll tell you a quick story. I know we're almost done, but I'll tell you a quick recent story that was a beautiful example of this. A gentleman, I met him through a program that's like a dental MBA. I'm on the faculty there. And he came up to me and he said, I just purchased my 3rd practice, and I have a goal to purchase 6 in my community. And that's as far as I want to go. And he said, and my team is freaking out. They've been with me for a couple decades. I've been a solo entrepreneur, a solo practice owner, and they are freaking out. And he said, can you help us align? And I said, absolutely. Talk to me. Just talk. Why are you doing this? And he said, well, I'll tell you why I'm doing it. Because we had some big box dentist businesses come into our community. He was in Detroit, a suburb of Detroit. Mm-hmm. And he said, we've been very hard hit economically. And he said, it felt like to me that we were getting more and more patients that said, hey, doc, I've got this new insurance through this, company. And the only choice they had were these, what he considered, these were his clinics that the quality was far lower than his.
Right.
But also the prices were low. The fees were low. And so he said, so it seems like the only choices they have are high fee, high quality, low fee, low quality. There's nothing in the middle. And I don't really know if it's possible, but I'm interested to see, could I put a group together just big enough and only big enough to get some economies of scale so that we could compete price-wise. Maybe we wouldn't meet their prices, but we could be fairly more competitive than we are price-wise and still keep our quality high. And that's why I'm in this program. That's what I'm interested. He said, because I go to church with these people. I see them in the grocery store. I have some of my first patients, grandchildren are coming to me as adults. That's how long I've been in this community. And he said, I love this community and I want to give them another option.
Right.
And I said, I can tell you right now, I hope you hire me, but you could save your money, because if you could stand up before your team and say that,
mm-hmm.
you would create clarity and create inspiration. You would. And for those that don't align, so he did hire me, and I did help him do that retreat. And after he literally did it so well that he didn't cry, but he got a little choked up about it just in this one part, right? And it was beautiful. And so after we were all done, I went to the women's restroom. And as I'm in the women's restroom, I heard all of this banter between a lot of these employees had just met for the first, they were from these different practices he was acquiring. And this was the first time they'd met, some
Wow.
of them. And I hear them saying, wow, this was not at all what I thought this was going to be. This was not at all what I thought I was going to hear. And this is exciting. And I was actually looking for another job, but I think I'm going to stay.
That's cool.
That's what can happen when you're unscripted. You speak from your heart, but he's speaking from his heart after he got clear.
Right. Which made it easy to do. And so if you're struggling with the clarity or the speaking or the vision, Katherine, where can they get your vision kit? I'm just going to tell them to get it. Can they get it at lionspeak.net?
What they should do is is send us an email at info@lionspeak.net. Info, INFO, at Lionspeak, all one word, of course, LIONSPEAK.net, not .com.
Don't even think about it. Just do it. Send the email right now. Get the kit and start processing through it. And if you find any difficulty, just reach out to Katherine. And how do you do that? Will you engage them in a phone call and answer their questions? How do you help them?
Without a doubt. Shoot us an email. Let us know you're interested in exploring the different ways that we can help you. We've got all kinds of products, downloadable products. And of course, we have trainers that can facilitate these retreats and all different ways that we coach people. So we're very flexible and we're excited about bringing this to the world and unleashing people into their greatest visions. And so if someone really wants to do it, we'll figure out a way to work. And like with you, Kirk, we really appreciate being surrounded by a community of great consultants, because we don't do the actual consulting. If the vision retreat shows that they need further coaching to actually implement the strategies we come up with, then we bring in some of our partners that we know really do that work, like yourself, like at ACT. So it's a great way to get there, and consultants usually love getting clients from us, because when they get this client, that client's clear and ready to go,
Yeah, so, they're always really well prepared when they come from you. And so I'm just excited to call you my friend. And as you guys can see, we even need the help of people that are masters that help us get clear and better at communicating. So Katherine, I am so crazy grateful. I want to do a bunch of these because you've got so many other, this is not your only gift. You have multiple gifts to the dental world.
I'd love to. I'd love to share our 800 number if somebody wants to call direct.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's 800-595-7060. That'd be a great way to connect with us, or you can just send an email to info@lionspeak.net, and somebody will get right back to you.
That is awesome.
We'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. So stay on for a second, Katherine. I'm just going to say good night to everybody else. I'm going to chat with you for a little bit. But if you're watching this, please feel free to add questions, and Katherine will get back and give you a great response to them, because this is really, really important work that makes all the other work so much easier, makes it work a whole lot better. Please continue to add questions. And until we see you next time, keep watching the Best Practice Show. Hope you guys have a great night. Thank you so much.